Good afternoon. My name's Stephen Herwire. I'm the owner of Herwire Financial. Today is June 30th of 2023. Today, after the market roundup, we are going to talk about employer retirement plans, and stay tuned after that for important disclosures. As of last night, the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 33,122.55. Year to date, it is down 0.3%. S&P 500 is closed at 4396.86. Year to date, it is up a little over 14.5%. NASDAQ 100 closed at 14,941.01. Year to date, it is up 38.1%. Gold closed at $1,918 per ounce. Year to date, it is up 5.2%. The Bitcoin index closed at 30,857.2. Year to date, it is up 84.69%. US dollar index closed at 103.33. Year to date, it is down 0.15%. 10-year Treasury closed at 3.85%. Year to date, it is down 0.03% from 3.88%. And finally, the S&P Aggregate Bond Index closed at 191.1. Year to date, it is up a little over 2%. Okay, there's four basic types of employer retirement plans we're going to talk about today. There are more, but they're a little bit obscure, and I'm just not going to get into them. First one is the 401k. Some of the characteristics are limited investment options. Your employer will pick your available funds. You'll get to pick the funds within that list of funds that they offer you, but for the most part, that's what you're limited to. Most I've seen in any employer plan is about 4 dozen different investments. Annual limit on employee contributions, it's $22,500 per calendar year. That's as of 2023. For those 50 and older, so that means if sometime this year you were 50 or older, you can contribute an extra $7,500 per year for a total of $30,000. Employers, generally speaking, will match funds. They will put in dollars to match dollars you've put in. Every plan is going to be a little bit different. Check with your plan. They have some loan provisions. There's a Roth option frequently available. A few thoughts to consider. In as much as possible, I do recommend making sure you're contributing enough to get all of the employer match. Very few things beat free money. And when you're considering a job change, unless you've been there for 6 or more years, especially if it's near a work anniversary, be aware of something called vesting schedules. There are common types. One is what's called 3-year cliff vesting. So that means if you leave the job before you reach 3 years, you get none of the employer match. And then there are other ones where they have graded vesting, where usually from 2 to 6 years, you'll get a portion of what your employer put in. It might, for instance, be you get 20% if you stay for 2 years or more. If you stay 3 years, you get 40% or more. This is just an example. Every plan is going to be a little bit different. Check with your HR. Key thing is, if the job is something you can put up with for another couple of weeks, another month, it might be worth considering if you're going to lose some of your vested amounts in your 401k. If it's a horrific job and you've just got to get out, then don't worry about it. But something to think about. What you have put in is always yours. And once you leave the employer, there are generally 4 options for what to do with your funds. Number 1, you can leave the money in your former employer's plan if it's permitted. 2, you can roll over assets into your new employer's plan if one's available and rollovers are permitted. Option 3 is you can roll it over into your own rollover IRA. And third, you can cash out the account value. your situation differs, so there are instances where each one of these is the appropriate one. Just be aware of what the consequences are. Like with that last one, you may be whacked with a 10% penalty and you may have to pay taxes on it. Consult a competent financial advisor like me to see, make sure you're aware before you make the decision. Simple IRA stands for Savings Incentive Match Plan for Employees. This part won't be on the quiz later. Nobody will ask you what that stands for. Annual limit on employee contributions is $15,500 per year. That's for calendar year 2023. If you happen to be 50 years old this year or older, you can do a catch-up contribution of $3,500 per year. Employers generally give matches. This is not 100% all the time, but most of the time there is some sort of match. But there's no vesting, because once the money goes into your simple IRA, it's yours. There may be a Roth option available in 2024. Legislation appears that way. Now I'm told if the IRS provides guidance, then they can give you a Roth option. One of the things you need to know about the simple IRA is if you're active in another employer plan like a 401k or SEP IRA, can't do that and do the simple at the same time. If you're no longer contributing, they're okay, but you can't be contributing to both. You also need to use caution when moving these types of accounts, okay? So first off, with the simple IRA, the funds available, the employer may or may not pick a specific provider. Really important safety tip. Once your account gets funded, I call it, once the first dollar hits your account, it starts a 2-year timer. Now, suppose after a year and a half, you've had enough and you decide it's time to move on, and you say, hey, I'll just roll my simple IRA into a rollover IRA. It may subject you to a 25% tax penalty. But basically, once the first dollar hits, those monies need to be in a simple IRA, either at your employer or at the new place. But if it doesn't say simple IRA on it, it's going to cause you problems. There are the same consequences if you cash it out. In addition to the potential 25% penalty if it's less than 2 years, you're also subject to taxes, potentially. So key thing is, before you go moving it, check with your financial advisor. They'll help you make sure you don't run afoul of the 2-year rule. Oh, by the way, remember how I said you can't do other active employer plans like 401ks at the same time? You can do contributory Roth and traditional IRAs if you're otherwise eligible at the same time. Okay, SEP IRA stands for Simplified Employee Pension. Annual limit on employer contributions, $66,000 per calendar year, or 25% of compensation. There are no employee contributions. Employers have discretion on what, if anything, to contribute. They can decide to contribute nothing. They can decide to contribute a fixed percentage. All deposits are property of the employee immediately. So say, for instance, the owner of the company makes his compensations $250 a year. He could put 10% in, and that would be $25,000. Now, if he had an employee that was making $100,000, he'd have to put $10,000 in, because that's 10%. Everybody gets the same percentage, but not the same dollar amount. But if he puts in 0%, then everybody gets 0%. Okay, pensions. These are usually funded by the employer, not as common as they once were. Mostly when you find them, they'll be available in government employment, unions, and for certain employees. The idea behind a pension is you'll have income for life. Now, if you're a single person, the choice is usually pretty easy. You say, I want to get a check for as long as I'm alive, and that'll be the biggest possible check out of your pension for your situation. However, if you have a spouse and you don't want to leave them high and dry, you take a smaller amount, and the pension continues on as long as one of you is alive. There's a few other iterations, but we're not going to talk about them here. The chief risks to having a pension is when it's underfunded. It's underfunded, you might not get paid. Here in Schenectady, New York, we actually have a local group that didn't fund their pension properly, and all the pensioners, or most of the pensioners, were left high and dry. The other risk is once you start getting that pension payment, for the most part, it doesn't change. So if you're retired for decades, which many of us will be, you may find it doesn't keep up with the cost of living, and you usually don't have access to more than the monthly amount. A few different stages in life once you graduate, and you need a plan for them. Once you graduate, your most important question is, am I saving enough for retirement? Next question, when you get closer to retirement, is USS Retirement going to be ready to set sail on the appointed date? You definitely need a plan for that. And then the last stage before you go out of retirement is, will I make sure that I don't run out of money before I run out of life? I can be reached at herwirefinancial.com. If you want to schedule an appointment, use the schedule an appointment button in the upper right-hand corner of my website. I do Zoom, phone, and in-person appointments. I am licensed and registered across several states and can easily add states if there is a need. If you want to see more videos like this, go to my YouTube channel, like and subscribe, please. And finally, the important disclosures: the opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance references historical, no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested in directly. All data is believed to be from reliable sources. However, no representation is made as to its completeness or accuracy. None of this is to be construed as tax or legal advice. Consult your advisor prior to taking any action. Hey, everybody, have a great 4th of July weekend.